Hi, this is Ariane with Sociable Art, and today I am painting this fish shack, and I have sketched it on my canvas to start out. You can purchase your own sketched canvas at sociableart.com, or you can also order one of the printed sheets, which make it really easy just to recreate this painting. I'm going to start out by painting in the water and the sky. And you can find a list of all the colors I'm using at the bottom of the screen. And if you don't have some of the colors that I'm using in your palette, then you can just mix them from some of the colors that you do have. You can just look up a handy dandy mixing chart. Starting out, I am just adding this orange shade into the water because, well, we know that water's not orange. There's a reflection created from the sunset in the sky above that's making the water orange, appear orange. It's got a big bright reflection on it. And I have added some water to my paint. I'm just laying in the basic colors, so I'm adding some water into the paint to make it thin. And I'm using a basic orange, which you can mix from red and yellow, or just buy the orange itself or use the orange that comes with your kit. I added some of a medium hue yellow to my orange because I just wanted it to be a little bit brighter and lighter. So I am using horizontal brush strokes, and you can see my paint is quite watered down. It's almost like a watercolor. I'm going right up to this shrimp boat in the water. Let's see. I think we go up to about here. Just follow your horizon line. And then there's also some water appearing over here. So I keep adding water into my paint because I don't want it to be really heavy, and I want it to be a little bit transparent looking. And if it gets too drippy wet, just have a paper towel handy so you can catch any drips that drip down your canvas. I'm also painting the sides of my canvas. You can do that if you'd like. And you can see on my pre-sketched version, the one that I sketched for myself, there are some pencil lines that I am just painting right through because you should still be able to see them. And if you bought one of my pre-sketched canvases, you could just paint right through the lines and just go back and fill them in later. So the reason I'm doing these horizontal brush strokes is I want it to appear like there's some current in the water, so I'm using my brush to kind of create that idea. And then, you know, if you want to go back with a slightly darker shade of orange, you can add in some darker areas to give it just a little contrast if you want to, and even, you know, some lighter white areas. Or you can just leave it one kind of solid shade. It's up to you because it's your painting. Okay, so I've done that. I have a little section I think that's going to show down here. It might be slightly darker because there might be some shadowing from this pier area. And I'm just going to fill that in here in this little corner between the pier or the dock and this little land section. Get that. Okay. There is going to be this little section of land up here, but we don't need to worry about it quite yet because I want to go ahead and add the sky. Okay, so I'm going to switch to a slightly bigger brush. You always want to use the biggest brush you can for any area of your painting. And I'm working on an 11 by 14 canvas right now, but I do have a 16 by 20 pre-sketched version available, and you'll want to use your biggest brush definitely to get the sky. And I'm using orange, and my orange is going to be maybe slightly more darker down here. And then as I move up the sky, I'm going to end up with a light section up here in the corner, just to let you know that that's what we're heading to. And what I'm going to do in this painting, I don't always do it this way, but this time I am going to kind of leave areas where I'm going to put my clouds because since we're doing this as a really quick, like hour and a half painting, you might not have time to do all the coats that you might want to do typically. Like usually I'd paint the entire background one color and then add the clouds on top. But today I'm just going to leave kind of an area for some clouds to appear. And I'm kind of doing these back and forth strokes, back and forth with my brush. I don't want to see a lot of brush strokes in this area. So this is my lighter section up here at the top. You can even have it even lighter. I just took some white on my brush and added that in. This is white added to the orange and yellow to get this shade up here at the top. These clouds don't have to be perfect. When we go back, we're gonna change them, I'm sure, when we add them in the other color that they're going to be. They're actually gonna be a nice purple shade, but okay. And as we move down the sky, we're gonna add a little more color. A little color area here. Shining through here. And I'm just kind of guessing where I want my clouds to be, but on your canvas, if you purchase one from sociableart.com, you will have like a slight sketch in the sky of where the clouds might be. Okay, moving down the sky, it's going to get a little bit more colorful. I'm still adding water to my paint. And the thing about clouds is they're usually not like perfect circles or puffy little cotton balls, though sometimes they are, but usually they're kind of an irregular shape, so that's what I'm trying to do here. And then the sky gets quite brilliant here at the bottom. And again, I'm going through the pencil lines on my canvas because I should be able to see them, and sometimes the pencil, the graphite that I used will smear a little bit, and it's fine. I just blend it in by going over it a couple times with some brush strokes. Using some water. Have it nice and brilliant color down here. Get right up close to that shark, and I'm going right over the fins because I don't want to have to paint around them, because if I did, I would end up with a lot of brush strokes, and I really just, it's fine. I mean, sometimes it depends on what style you want. If you want a lot of brush strokes to be apparent, that's a style in its own way. So just do it the way that you feel comfortable with doing it. It doesn't have to be all smooth, and I like it to be just a little bit abstract. I don't like it to be necessarily like photorealistic, you know, where it just, you look at it and you say, oh my gosh, is that a photo or is it a painting? I like it to be just a little bit on the abstract side. If you really want to get rid of brush strokes, you can always do a little dabbing if you're using a wet paint like I am. Add a little more color. I saw an area where I had some canvas showing through. We definitely don't want to have any canvas showing. Okay, and as I mentioned, there is a little bit of an area. Oh, and if this happens to you, what just happened right there is I had a little too much water on my brush and it pulled off some of the paint that was on there, and what you end up with is this big ugly white spot, which actually I'll probably just turn it into a cloud, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if you have this happen in an area of your sky where you want color, you just have to let it dry and then go back and cover it up. If I tried to correct it right now, it would just do the same thing. But you can go back in a few minutes when it's dry and you can correct that. Or by just putting a second coat over it. Okay, so now I'm switching to a smaller brush because I want to add this little area of There's some greenery off in the distance, some trees, but I'm not gonna make it green. I'm actually gonna make it a shade of, kind of a brownish shade. I'm gonna take some of my brown and some of my black. Mix a little orange in, because the orange sunset is shining on everything. So brown and black, and then some orange added to it. And then I'm just gonna add this in with my, it's a little small brush that I'm using, kind of a medium. Mine's a square, but it doesn't matter really what shape you use, so long as you can get this effect. And what I'm doing is along the bottom, along the shoreline here, it's pretty straight line. Might have a little bit of variation in there, but then when you get up to where the trees are, I'm just using kind of the corner of my brush and kind of going around, circling, trying to get that irregular edge. And I have added a little water into my paint, as you can see again. Maybe a little bit might be showing up above this roof line. It's nothing with much detail, it's just the idea of some trees off in the distance. Making sure to wrap the painting around the corner of the canvas, or the edge of the canvas. And then I'm finishing off this horizon line here behind the shrimp boat. Always go back and make some of it a little more solid in shade later. So I used quite a bit of water. I might even dab that just a little. Whoops, got a little of my sky there. Okay, now I'm going to add the clouds in, provided that the orange is dry, because if it isn't, you're going to drag that color right into your clouds. So my clouds are going to be a shade of, what I've used is the cobalt blue, a little bit of purple, and a little bit of the magenta with white, and it's mostly white. So here's the color I end up with, this nice kind of a lavender shade. And start adding that in. I like to use a round tip brush is nice, but if you don't have that, you can use another. And you can use more than one shade of color. So while I have this one shade of purple, I can add some other shades in as I go, like make parts of it more white. And you want to overlap some of your sky. Please make sure it's dry first, or you're going to have an ugly color of kind of a gray. And some areas of the cloud could be a little more pink. Now, how do we get this to look not like a solid shape in the sky, but like a cloud that's sitting on top of the sky? And I'll show you. Just one second, I want to fill in just a little more of it. Maybe the top might be a little bit of a darker shade. that it still looks pretty unrealistic, but bear with me. Okay, just filling in a little bit more, and then we'll work on making it look more like an actual cloud. Like adding some of this magenta up in this corner here. Okay, so we have this big purple blob in the sky, and we want it to look more like an actual cloud. So I need to make some of the edges a little wispy and a little more irregular. So I'm going back to my paint color, adding a little bit of white to it. And I'm gonna work on the edges. I actually have a little bit of color in this brush I don't want to be there, so get that color out. Okay. And then I'm just gonna use very little paint and a real nice light touch to kind of make the edges more wispy looking, and maybe have some little clouds floating off from the center. And you don't want to be heavy-handed with your paint when you're trying to do this part, because it's a very light touch you want. Every once in a while I'm picking up a little bit of the orange, and I have to get that out of my brush. If you keep working with it with that orange in there, you're just going to have that orange smeared all throughout. You can go up and you can go back and touch up these colors later. So that this inside part of the cloud doesn't look like such a solid mass of color, we got to add some different shades in there. So I've added a little bit of white here, and I'll add a little of this magenta up at the top. The key to getting these colors to kind of blend together is that you want them all to be wet at the same time. So if some area dries, you can just add the color back in so that you can make it wet again, and it'll be blendable. And even where I didn't leave a white area to put a cloud in, you can just create one wherever you want on top of the orange. So that's what I've done right here. Just adding one more cloud just because I felt like putting one there. Going back to this one and adding a little bit of the wispiness. We have this area here where I had that little error in my paint, which I'm gonna now add a cloud on top of. So you get the idea of how we're doing these, and I'm just going to put the camera in a time-lapse mode for a moment so I can finish the clouds, and you can work on your own at your own pace. Just wanted to give you an idea of how they're done, and then I'll let you work on them at your own pace. So I'll be right back with you at the regular speed. Okay, now I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to do the foreground and the pier before I do the building, because that's going to be sitting on top of that stuff. So the pier, I created a shade using white and a little bit of black and a little bit of brown. And I use kind of a sepia shade of brown with my black and white, but you can also use maybe an umber, something like that. So I've watered down my paint, and I'm just kind of filling in. Do you notice the direction of my brush strokes? I am doing horizontal brush strokes. People have a tendency to want to do the planks of, you know, like a pier like this or a dock, kind of do them diagonally like this, but that is not correct. If you use proper perspective, it would actually, the planks would be horizontal like this. And that's why I'm doing my brush strokes that way. Even though I haven't gone through and actually painted in planks yet, I might add some lines later when it's dry that have the idea of being planks. I don't want to be real precise and have to draw out every single line for every plank, but right now I'm just laying in a basic color. And I'll add some different shades in a little bit when it's drier. But I might just add this darker area underneath. Just smeared it a little so it wouldn't be so dramatic. Okay, and then down here in this foreground area, what I'm imagining is it's kind of dirt or sand, so we can use a similar color down here that I used up there, but I also want to have some areas where there's a little bit of orange in there, and then also some grass. So just be prepared to have your grass shade ready, so that you can add that in too. I got a little bit of the orange because I think that the sky would also, it would be nice if that shade was also reflected down here a little bit. I don't want it to be one solid color, that is for sure. I want to have several different shades. I don't want my green to be really bright, so I might add some of the sand color into it before I put it onto the canvas, because my shade of green is pretty bright. So I'm going to add some of the sand color. And then I'm just going to add it in like this in a watered down way that's close up to the building in some areas. And I'll add some kind of the idea, some individual blades later. Right now I'm just trying to put these washes of color in. Add some white there. Don't forget to paint the paint around the sides of the canvas, so that you can just hang it up as it is and you won't have to frame it. Maybe back here, it might be just a little darker. that grass shade mixed in with the sand color. Actually don't want it to be that green even. Probably gonna blend that in a bit so it's not quite so green. You see how I'm using the edge of my brush? I was just going to add a little bit of texture in there. I might do a little dabbing here with my paper towel because I kind of like when I get that textured look. Okay, and then I just have a little more of the walkway to fill in here. And I still need to add a little orange in there. Got a little carried away with the orange there, so I'm trying to blend it in just a little. I think I lost too much of my grass color, so I need to go back and add that back in a little bit. Okay, I have one more little section of pier here. I ran out of my color, so I had to mix that up really quick. Whoops, I picked up the green there, I didn't really mean to. All right, now to go to this shack. So the shack itself, I thought it'd be nice if it was like a weathered blue-gray. So that's what I'm going to do. And the roof is gonna be a darker shade, but let's start out by filling in the building itself with a watered down blue-gray. So I've added cobalt blue to white and added just a pinch of black to it. This is coming out almost a little too blue in my opinion. I think it could have a little more of the black in it, so I'm gonna add just a little more. Because that's the thing, if you start filling in with your color and you don't like it, there's no reason to continue. You should just quit that color, add some other color to it, and then just go over it or just continue working with it as I've done. Okay, so once I get filled in around the edges here, then I want to do horizontal strokes because this building has siding on it and the siding is horizontal. I'm just filling in first and then I'll go back and I'll do the horizontal strokes. still really is more blue than I would like it to be. Maybe on our second coat, I can make it a little more gray-white. But right now, it's gonna be this color. I have a sign on my shack, so I'm kind of going around that. I don't want to fill that in with this shade. I want it to be white. There's also going to be some white trim on this building that we'll add later. You can switch to a smaller brush if you need to get in these little nooks and crannies, and this would actually be slightly darker up here because it is under the eaves of the roof. So you can make that a slightly darker shade if you'd like. And right under here will be a slightly darker shade too. Okay. And then our roof, I'm gonna do a dark gray. And actually, come to think of it, it would have a little of our orange in it because that would be kind of reflecting down from the sky. So this is black and white and a little bit of orange. I do want to water it down also, so it will look the same as the rest of the painting, which is a watered down paint. You always have to pay attention to your brush strokes because it does matter. So you can do it in any which way, but eventually you want to kind of smooth them out in this for this painting style. And there might be a little line of this roof color that you could see on this side too. You could use a finer brush if you want to do it just right. All right, so now the next thing to do will be to add the trim, to fill in, the trim is white on this building, to add some details like little lines on the siding and the words on the sign. And I don't know how I missed that section of siding there, but anyway, I'm going to fill that in. But I'm going to put the camera into a time-lapse mode so that I can do this a little more quickly, and you can join me at the end for some finishing touches done in regular speed. But for now, I'm just going to switch to a time-lapse, so I'll be back with you in a moment.